Hello everyone, welcome back to the Building Enterprise AI Agent System series. In the previous episode, we introduced the Enterprise Agent AI, Agentic AI reference architecture and discussed how Enterprise AI is much more than simply connecting an applications to the language model. I wrote a introduction article in LinkedIn and my own website. If you haven't read the introductory article yet, I leave the link in the description below. It explains the complete architecture behind enterprise AI systems and the role of each component in the platform. Let's quickly revisit the architecture we introduced in the previous episode. So this is the article which I was talking about. I give the link in the description. You can go through the entire article. So what I'm trying to do here, like, we'll quickly go through revisit the architecture that we talked about in the previous episode. So the diagram, what you're seeing here, represents the overall architecture of an enterprise agent platform. So if you see here, every request begins with the user and enters the platform through the A gateway. From there, it moves to agent planner, which decides how the problem should be solved. Depending on the request, the planner retrieves business knowledge, access memory, invokes enterprise tools, selects the appropriate AI model, and finally executes actions across enterprise systems. Throughout the platform, observability and governance ensure that every interaction remains secure, traceable, and compliant. Over the coming episode, we will explore each of these layers in detail. So to say, today we are going to look at the very first component in that architecture, a gateway. Let's move on to the demo. So let's start the first layer, a gateway. So most AI demos shows a very simple flow, user, AI model and response. But that's rarely how enterprise AI system works. Before the request ever reaches an AI model, an enterprise platform performs several checks to ensure the request is secure, compliant, and allowed. Let's see why we have to do all this. Imagine you are building an enterprise AI system. There are multiple users and an organization uses that. Imagine a user asks, summarize our Q2 sales performance. Should your application immediately send that prompt to an LLM? Probably not. The platform first needs to answer several questions. Who is making the request? What role do they have? Are they allowed to access this data? This is very important. Does the request contain sensitive business information which is restricted to only the appropriate people? Which enterprise tool should the agent be allowed to use? And which AI model should process the request? And finally, should this request even be allowed to continue? These decisions have nothing to do with the prompt engineering. They are architectural decisions when you set up a pipeline. So that's exactly why enterprise AI platform introduce an AI gateway. So what is AI gateway? You can think of AI gateway as a front door of an enterprise AI platform. Every request enters through this gateway before reaching the agent planner or any AI model. So what its responsibility? Its responsibility typically includes authenticating the user, authorizing the access, enforcing organizational policies, controlling tool permissions, selecting the appropriate AI model, and recording an audit trail. Rather than allowing every application to communicate directly with the AI models, the gateway provides a single governed entry point. This makes enterprise AI secure, consistent, and easier to operate at scale. To make this easier to understand, I have built a simple demonstration inside our NexusIQ platform. This is not intended to represent a commercial product. It is a learning environment that visualizes how an enterprise AI request moves through an AI gateway. Let's walk through the flow so that we'll get more understanding of what I'm talking about. So now that we have understood the role of the AI gateway in our reference architecture, let's see how it works using a simple demonstration built in NexusIQ. So on the left, I have a business request that summarizes regional sales performance for Q2 across all territories. Along with the request, I'm specifying the user role and the business domain And in this example, the request is coming from a sales analyst working with sales data. Once I click execute, the request does not immediately reach an AI model. Instead, it begins passing through a series of gateways checkpoint. Let's follow the journey. So what you see here, there are series of checkpoints. It's called live gateway pipeline. Authentication. The first checkpoint is authentication. This steps answers a simple question: who is making the request? The platform verifies the user's identity before allowing any further processing. Without verified identity, the request stops here. Authentication is the foundation of every enterprise AI platform. This is what we call the ACL, access control list. Even though if you create something in the cloud architecture, this becomes a very key point. The authorization. Once the identity has been confirmed, the next step is authorization. Authentication tells us who the user is. Authorization determines what the user is allowed to access. In this example, you can see that this user has permission to work with sales, customer analytics, while access to HR and finance information is denied. This ensures the agent only operates within the permission granted to the users. So next is the policy engine. So the policy engine it evaluates the request against organizational policies. Notice the different checks being performed. The request is inspected for sensitive information, compliance requirements, prompt safety, data residency rules, regional wise rules, and any organizational restrictions that may apply. In this example, all of those checks pass, allowing the request to continue. This is one of the key difference between enterprise AI and customer AI. Enterprise systems don't just generate answers. They first determine whether the request should even be processed. Next comes the tool registry. Enterprise AI agent rarely operate with unrestricted access. Instead, the platform decides which enterprise tools are available for this request. Here we can see that SQL and summary capabilities are available while other tools remain unavailable. This follows the principle of least privilege. The agent only receives the capability it actually needs to complete the task. Next, model router. Once governance checks are complete, the request reaches the model router. Enterprise platform often work with multiple AI models rather than relying on a single provider due to various reasons like cost, data sensitivity, and so on. The platform classifies the request and select the most appropriate model based on the nature of the task and the nature of the query it's received. In this case, the request is straightforward business summarization task, so the platform routes it to a general purpose model. The important point is that the application does not choose the model, but the platform does. Audit log. Every decision made throughout this process is then recorded in the audit log. If someone later asks why was this request approved or which permissions and policies were applied, there is a complete record of every decision taken by the gateway. This level of traceability is essential for enterprise AI systems to address any issues or concerns, even the auditing, whenever there is auditing is happening. These kind of informations are very important in the enterprise level of data when you are accessing those data. Then the AI decision panel. So the AI decision panel in the right hand side, we can also see the final decisions made by the gateway. The request has been approved, the selected model has been identified, the tools available to generate to the agents are listed, and the complete audit trial has been recorded. Only after all of those governance checks have completed successfully in the request allowed to move forward. At the bottom, you can see agent planner waiting for a gateway clearance. Once the gateway approves the request, the planner begins preparing the execution strategy. In this example, it plans to retrieve data from SQL layer, process the information, and generate the final business summary. We will explore how the agent planner works in the next episode. So the demonstration highlights of the most important architectural principles in enterprise AI. A business request does not travel directly from the user to an AI model. It first passes through authentication, authorization, policy evaluation, tool selection, model routing, and audit logging. Only after those governance checks are complete does the system begin reasoning about the user's request. That's why the AI gateway is the front door to every enterprise AI platform. In the next episode, we will follow this same request into an agent planner and explore how enterprise AI system transforms business goals into executable tasks. So one of the biggest misconception about enterprise AI is that applications communicate directly to the language models. In reality, enterprise AI platforms introduce multiple architectural layers before a model is ever selected. The AI gateway is responsible for ensuring that every request is authenticated, authorized, policy compliant, routed correctly, and fully auditable. The model is only a part of the system. The surrounding architecture is what makes enterprise AI trustworthy. Why I am making this enterprise AI agent series? So when I work for a bigger clients, when we wanted to do different things like tech modernization, moving their legacy system into the most appropriate or to the cloud or to the upgraded on-prem or something. And whenever we are developing these kind of AI-driven solutions, the major things the enterprise companies and the compliance team is thinking about how we are going to access the data, how the data privacy is going to be. Are we going to expose the entire data to the large language model? How we are going to have a guardrails, right? How we are going to observe what is happening? How we are going to trace what is happening around the system? How we are going to maintain it? So these questions are, in my experience, I would say these questions are restricting AI agents to deploy in the enterprise level. That is why if you speak with the different architect people or different engineers, there are a lot of prototypes and POCs has been working on across every companies, so to say now, because every companies are moving towards AI. The people or the company or the architecting people are struggling to convincing the customers on how we are going to create enterprise AI systems which is more secured and which is more compliant to the original. For example, if you go to European side, AI sovereignty is become one of the biggest topics people are talking about. That is the reason I'm running a different series of how we can create agent, how we can engineering sovereign systems, like so that we can how we can create more trustable AI driven solutions for the enterprises. So in the next episode, we will move beyond the gateway and explore the agent planner, the component responsible for understanding business goals, breaking them into executable tasks, and coordinating the work across enterprise knowledge, tools, and AI models. If you found this video useful, I would appreciate if you subscribed and follow the series. I've created my own website where I consolidated all my work across five different topics which I've been writing contents and creating videos and talking about it. If you can follow that, I'll give the link in the description. You can follow that so that we all can contribute and we can create a good learning path. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode.